All right, man. Let's go ahead and break down these hash sites. So what I'm working on right now is I'm working on something called a hash site, and in the process, I also had to make a hash server. Okay, so my goal is to. Ooh, that feels good. That breeze feels good. My goal is to make a universal directory of hashes, right? But that within itself isn't going to be enough for the World Wide Web. This is going to hash sites and hash world is going to be this interconnected gateway between blockchain technology Web3, which consists of blockchain technology, okay, dApps, and Web2, okay? 1 second. Because right now there is, let me just I'm using Hash World to connect Web 2 and Web 3. Web 3 basically allows you, it's basically an ownership kind of platform ordeal, but it's really decentralized. And because it's decentralized, it's still in room. It's still in it's still room for a lot of improvement. Okay? And that's where hash world is coming into play. And hash sites. Your hash site is basically a registry. You register your hash sites. So you look at somebody like hash, you got the hashtag Madonna, hashtag Michael Jordan, hashtag Leonardo da Vinci, things like that. But there are certain hashtags. The problem, how I had to work around the problem is that the web automatically uses hashtags a lot. I'm not just talking about hashtag free Neembot. I ain't just talking about that. I'm talking about through the URL, right? The web utilizes hashtags for various reasons. So there's already an understood meaning layer on the World Wide Web. Okay? The World Wide Web is, to us in today's time, it's like the World Wide Web in today's time is like fitness. It's like eating. It's like using the bathroom, urinating. It's something that would never go away. And we're always going to have access to it, and we're always going to find use of it. However, Web 3, the World Wide Web is basically Web 2. Web 3 is basically Krav Maga, Taibo, yoga. Everybody heard about it, but not many people are doing it. Okay? there's a certain society that exists in the Web3 world. And it's a society that doesn't, this society that exists in the Web3 world also exists in the Web2 world. But the only difference is Web3 is predominantly one thing. Web2, on the other hand, has two worlds. It has a browsing world, and Web2 has a browsing world as in free users world, and also paid users world, a purchasing world. That's what Web2 has. It has a browsing world, people who surf the internet and don't do nothing but surf the internet. They go on dating sites, they just look at girls on dating sites. You know, they just utilize free platforms and put all their energy into it, okay? But then there's people who do all that, but they also buy things on the internet, okay? So, but Web3 is predominantly a different society of shakers and movers, okay? There's no browsing Web3, you know what I'm saying? So that's what HashWorld kind of does a lot of things, because I'm essentially using HashWorld to stitch two separate universes together in a pathway. So you look at Asgard, right? Asgard is Web3. And now I want you to look at Earth, okay? And that's Web2. I'm putting HashWorld. When I say HashWorlds, I'm talking about HashSites, okay? I'm putting HashSites and HashWorlds as the Bifrost, okay? It's gonna be the Bifrost. But the thing about so when I'm creating this server, this hash server. Okay, on this hash server, it's gonna have HashSites. All right. So whereas right now, you go Taylor Swift, and it pulls up her website, or you go TaylorSwift.com, it pulls up her website, right? In on a hash site, all you'll put in is hashtag what you're looking for. You feel what I'm saying? And it'll direct you to the person that owns the site. So the thing about is HashWorld is predominantly infused with Web3. Okay? But with Web2, until it gets universally accepted, right? I'm just gonna build an intelligence layer on top of Web2. So everything that I want to happen, because this is where hashtag C comes into play. One second, I wanted to hear what it was saying real quick.
HashWorld doesn't sit inside Web 2 or Web 3. It sits above both as a unifying interpretation layer that connects them. The clean way to think about it is, Web 2 and Web 3 are sources. HashWorld is the interface that makes sense of them. The internet stack. Web 2, applications content layer. This is today's internet. Websites, Google, YouTube, Amazon, APIs, social media, databases. Problem, Everything is fragmented and search-based. Pro, Web3, goes identity layer. This is blockchain-based systems, wallets, 0x, smart contracts, NFTs, tokens, ENS domains. Problem, ownership exists, but usability and discovery are still fragmented. Hash world.
Hold on. So, remember I said HashSite is just the registry, okay? That's going to be the registry, and that's going to, get you your hash site, okay? But now, there's certain hashes that you cannot register, like hash news, hash tech, hash info. You know what I'm saying? There's certain hashes that you will not be able to register as a legally owned hash. And the reason being is because, like right now, we were saying with Web3, a lot of you guys are utilizing Web3 through the decentralized apps. You know how, like, when you on Facebook and then you click that little button and then you can switch to your fan page, or you can switch to a group, your group. You know what I'm saying? That's what Hash World is going to be able to allow you to do through Web3. You're going to be able to be on do your Web3 business, click on this Hash World logo, and it automatically brings you to your Hash World profile. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna click on your Hash World logo. It's gonna automatically bring you on your Hash World profile. Same thing you do on the World Wide Web, you'll be able to do on Web3 in the future.
Meaning intelligence layer. This is your layer. Hash World understands intent, music, news, Taylor Swift, resolves identity across Web 2 to Web 3, merges data from both worlds, outputs structured answers, SA, LA context. The correct relationship, you can see the code in our conversation history. Hash World does not replace them. It connects them into one experience layer. What Hash World actually does. 1. From Web 2, it pulls content, media, articles, APIs, search results. 2. From Web 3, it pulls wallet identity, token NFT ownership, ENS names, on-chain activity. Through it unifies everything. So instead of opening 10 apps, searching Google, checking wallets separately, you can see the code in our conversation history. Nash key positioning insight. This is important. Hash World is not a Web 2 platform, a Web 3 app, a blockchain replacement. Hash World is, open quote, a semantic plus intelligence layer that makes Web 2 and Web 3 usable through a single hash-based interface. Close real-world analogy. Think of the internet like this. Layer, roll, Web 2, content stores, books, videos, apps. Web 3, ownership records, who owns what? Hash World, the librarian that understands everything and answers you directly. Why this positioning matters. If you position Hash World correctly, Web 2 companies become data sources. Web 3 becomes identity plus proof layer. Hash World becomes the interface users actually touch. That's how platforms win. One-line summary. Open quote, Hash World is the intelligence layer that unifies Web 2's data and Web 3's ownership into a single hash-driven system of meaning, identity, and interaction. Close. Haver C is the part of your system that turns Hash World from a navigation layer into a command language for the internet. Right now you have Hash World equals meaning layer, music, news, Taylor Swift. Hash site, registry layer, creates, manages hashes. Number C is the execution syntax inside that system. C actually is, open quote, C equals a structured command language that tells Hash World how to respond, not just what to look up, close quote. So instead of only saying, you can see the code in our conversation history, you can say, you can see the code in our conversation history. Where -C sits in the stack, you can see the code in our conversation history. What NAT C changes, this is important. Without -C, Hash World equals search, summarize system. With C, HashWorld equals programmable internet interface. You're not just asking questions anymore. You're giving instructions to the system. Hash breakdown of C syntax. You already defined parts of this. Command, meaning. SI, short answer. LI, long answer. D, demographics, deeper context. Now C becomes the controller wrapper. Example 1, simple query. You can see the code in our conversation history. HashWorld does, detects music namespace, pulls data, returns short answer.
Right.
Example 2, deep analysis. You can see the code in our conversation history, returns, detailed breakdown, sources, implications. Example 3, identiv3 plus web2 merge. You can see the code in our conversation history. Returns, music catalog, social presence, news, optional blockchain verification, audience demographics. What C really becomes? This is the key insight. Open quote, C is the instruction layer that tells HashWorld how to think, close quote. So, hash equals what topic? HashWorld equals system. Take C equals how behavior. Full system model. You can see the code in our conversation history. Why this is powerful? Without C, users search. Users program the internet. Even if the programming is simple, you can see the code in our conversation history. That is already a new interaction language for the web.
Right.
Big picture role of C in your ecosystem. HashWorld equals brain. HashSite equals directory. C equals language. So together, open quote, you are building a system where humans interact with the internet using a structured command language instead of search queries. Close quote. One-line definition, open quote. C is the command layer inside HashWorld that lets users control how information is retrieved, structured, and interpreted across Web 2, Web 3, and AI systems using a standardized hash-based language. If you want...
Yo. My goal is to make, once this happens, is to make the hashtag symbol not only a directory into the hash world, but also a utility feature of the AI systems in hash world. So, as I said, there's certain things that won't be registered on the hash site. Hash THE. Hash AT. You know, little things that, like, you know, is not personal. So that when people use hash on, like, Google, Bing, Firefox, Mozilla, all these other Yahoo, all these other sites, you know, even the Microsoft site, when they use a hash, my goal is to when they use a hash in a question, or they search for a hash site, like, let's say Drake has a hash site, or you know, just anybody, a game, you know, somebody who owns a hash site. My goal is for it to be like a teleportation device pathway on Web 2. So it'll have to hit my servers, which would be, that'll be pretty a big step. That might be far into the future, because that's pretty a big step. But how I see it is, I gotta give a good example. What would be something that'd be, okay, let's just say there's someone who, because one thing, I don't want my HashSite, I want my HashSite to be, it's gonna be verified, verification purposes, because like I said, you're gonna have your Web3 and all of that, right? So I'm not gonna allow it to be like the World Wide Web. Everybody was rushing to own something, you know what I'm saying? Like I remember a time when I was on Facebook early in the game, and I seen what it was gonna be, and I was like, I said to myself, man, I can create a page of Jay-Z. I get on then, cause he wasn't on at the time. You know what I'm saying? Celebrities wasn't on it, and I really thought about doing it, and I was gonna do it. I think I might have did do it. But anyway, years later, they might have took the page from me, and deactivated the page. Same thing with Google and these websites, right? You know how they say a girl did something with Sierra Mist, and they had to rebrand themselves because they didn't repurchase the domain name, and the girl ended up buying it. Yeah, the girl ended up buying it, and I think I might have did that before. Yeah, I think I did that with Google. Never seen no money from it. Pretty sure they sent it. But anyway, so I don't want that to happen. I want full verification purposes, because we have already gotten to a society where brands are worldwide and people know their brands, right? So when I push this, the goal would be, you know, first wave, and you know, once it's getting ready to go public, 6 months before I go public, boom, worldwide notices to these major companies, right? Major brands, major artists, major writers, major authors, right? Because if you don't own your name, and let's say you be like, nah, I'm good on that, I'm good over here. Okay, cool. When somebody else take your name, you know what I'm saying? You know, ain't nothing you can really do about it. You know what I'm saying? I can't really have your back, but at the same time, I don't want that to happen. But we gotta also take in consideration that there's people with the same name. There's another Michael Jackson out there. And he ain't of no relations, but his name is Michael Jackson. You know? So, but if I can prevent the dogfight from happening in that sphere of existence, I will. But because of the verification purposes, you feel what I'm saying? It's gonna slow down a lot of that. BS from happening. But like I said, if the world's greatest pool player, doesn't want to build a hash site, and he's good on that, and somebody else grabs it, and now it's becoming a problem, that's on him. Once you passed up the offer, it's over with. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But so I'm seeing, I want, so let's just say, okay, like, for instance, you might hashtag ice bucket challenge, right? That ain't nothing. You see what I'm saying? It ain't gonna send you to hash world. But if you hash Ice Cube, Ice Tea, Vanilla Ice, and they have hash sites, then it'll send you to hash world. Yep. One second. Because I'm trying to get pound hashtag C as the command language for the internet. So it has to sit on top of the internet. All of this has to sit on top of the internet. Yeah, yep. Internet OS language. Let's listen to this.
For Hacker C to evolve into a full internet operating language, it has to stop being a cool way to query hash world and become something closer to what HTTP HTML JavaScript did for the web, but focused on intent and instruction, not pages. Right now, Google equals keyword language, ChatGPT natural language prompt layer, web equals URL navigation system. Your idea, open quote, have a C, intent plus control language for the entire internet, close quote. Step 1. C starts as a query wrapper, today's stage. At the beginning, you can see the code in our conversation history.roll, tells HashWorld how to respond, formats output, SLID. This is basically open quote, structured search input, close quote. Nash step 2, C becomes a command language, early evolution. Now users start doing more than asking. You can see the code in our conversation history. Now he is no longer just asking. It is open quote, issuing instructions to the system, close quote. This is the shift from search to execution requests. Ham step 3, C becomes a universal router, mid-stage.
Right.
At this point, HashWorld connects real systems. Web 2 APIs, Amazon, YouTube, Google, etc. Web 3, wallets, NFTNS, AI models, databases. Now C can do. You can see the code in our conversation history. Now C is acting like, open quote, a universal API language for the internet, close quote. Now step 4, Nash C becomes programmable intent, advanced stage. Now things get interesting. Users start chaining logic. You can see the code in our conversation history. Now that C becomes, open quote, event-driven internet programming, close quote. Not coding in Python or JavaScript, but coding in intent language. Now step 5, C becomes Internet OS language, full evolution. At maturity, C is no longer just inside HashWorld. It becomes, open quote, a standardized instruction layer used by apps, browsers, AI agents, and services, close quote. So instead of clicking apps, opening websites, writing code, using APIs manually, users just write. You can see the code in our conversation history, and systems interpreted across. Web 2 apps, Web 3 wallets, AI agents, operating systems. The key transformation path. Here is the real evolution chain. You can see the code in our conversation history. What makes C different from normal programming languages? Traditional code language. Syntax heavy, intent heavy, developer focused, human focused. Manual logic, AI interpreted logic. App specific, internet wide. So instead of writing, you can see the code in our conversation history. Users write, you can see the code in our conversation history. The real breakthrough important. C is not trying to compete with programming languages. It is trying to become, open quote, the human to internet instruction layer, close quote. So HTML equals structure, HTTP equals transport, SQL equals data, C equals intent. Why this could actually scale. This only works if, 1, AI is the interpreter. C only works because AI translates intent actions. 2, HashWorld is the router. It decides where requests go. 3, APIs, Web3 become execution layers. They actually perform the actions. Final definition. Open quote. C evolves into a universal internet operating language by transforming human intent into structured, executable commands that route across Web 2, Web 3, and AI systems, turning the internet from a search-based system into an instruction-based system. Close.
Just for future reference, man, I want y'all to know that when I do see them go up and down, up and down, up and down, I like them when they go up, 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 up. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's going down because it's taking some of my, you know what I mean, schmackaronis, you know what I'm saying? Then I understand that. But if it's anything else, I'm not accepting it. Cause I ain't got what do you call it? You know, I done did too much to be penalized for little shit like that when I'm doing what I'm doing, and everybody know what's going on. So I don't. How to build a competition that makes HashSites feel native. So now I'm gonna go back to the beginning of my actual creation process and listen to it. Okay, here it is. What it all started with a question: what makes a website? Okay, I want to make a hash site where hashtag can become a directory on the web. That's an interesting topic. Let's see.
That's an interesting concept. In today's web, the shack symbol already has a special meaning called a URL fragment. For example, example.com/product reviews. The browser interprets reviews as a location inside the page rather than a separate directory. A hash site would redefine that idea and treat as a first-class navigation layer. Concept, hash site. Instead of website.com/products, website.com/about, website.com/contact. You would have website.com products about, website contact, or even music, news, sports, weather as globally recognized destinations. Expanded vision. A hash site network could work like this. Traditional web, hash site web. URL based, hashtag based. Domain first, topic first. Search engine finds pages. Hash engine finds hashes. Multiple sites per topic. Universal topic directories. Examples, music, music related content across the web. Movies, movie information.
Right.
AI knowledge hub.
See, like hash movie would just be like like, you know, on Hash World, it'll be something that, you know what I'm saying, it's the directory into Hash World. You feel what I'm saying? So let's just say Marvel or Paramount create a movie and they put it on hash, they put it inside hash world, right? It'll be under the movies tab. You get what I'm saying?
BHX Ecosystem Directory, C, AI Command Language and Intelligence Layer. HashSite Architecture, a HashSite browser extension or protocol to translate music into hashsite.net//music or /music behind the scenes. Users would type open quote, music latest releases, close quote, dot instead of open quote, search for latest music releases, close quote. Potential components, hash registry, global ownership of hashes, similar to domain registration. Hash resolver, converts hashes into destinations. Hash index, stores content associated with each hash. Hash rank, reputation and ranking system for hashes. Hash AI summarizes all content under a hash. Mission statement. HashSite aims to transform the internet from a network of addresses into a network of ideas. Rather than navigating websites through domains and folders, users navigate through universally recognized hash destinations that represent topics, communities, organizations, and knowledge. HashSite makes information discoverable through meaning rather than location, creating a simpler and more intelligent web. The strongest version of this idea may not be replacing websites, but creating a new layer on top of them where AI, sports, news, and _C become universal directories that any browser, search engine, or AI assistant can understand. That makes the hash itself the destination rather than just a label.
Yeah, but creating a new layer on top of them where hashtag AI, hashtag sports, hashtag news, or hashtag C become universal directories that any browser, search engine, or AI assistant can understand. Correct. Okay. Okay, this is my hash server.
Yes, a hash server could be the backbone that makes HashSite work. Think of it as a specialized server that resolves hashes instead of traditional URLs. Traditional internet user enters, google.com DNS server resolves, google.com IP address, web server returns. WebSat HashSite internet user enters, hash music, news, BHXC. Hash server resolves, hash destination, content, AI summary returns, website, app, data feed, AI generated answer, directory of resources. Hash server architecture, image layer 1 hash registry, stores all registered hashes, similar to domain registrars. Examples, music, sports, travel. C, layer 2 hash resolver, equivalent of DNS, converts a hash into a destination. Example, cc.hash, music, music.hash. Layer 3, hash index, stores metadata, links content sources, tracks ownership and permissions. Layer 4, hash AI engine, understands user intent, summarizes content, provides short answer, essay, long answer, demographics, DE, etc. User types, Tesla earnings as a hash server with 1, resolve Tesla, 2, gather current information, 3, generate a short answer, 4, return a response instantly. Instead of searching websites, the user interacts with the hash itself. Hash server mission. Open quote, hash server is a next generation internet resolution engine that transforms hashtags into intelligent destinations. Rather than connecting users to locations on the web, hash server connects users directly to topics, knowledge, communities, and AI-powered information streams through a universal hash-based navigation protocol. Close quote. Long-term vision. If adopted broadly, the stack could look like HashSite, user-facing web experience, hash server, resolution infrastructure, hash DNS, hash lookup system, hash AI, intelligence layer, hash ID, ownership and authentication system, hash OS, operating system level support, hash C, universal command language for interacting with hashes. In that prototype today as a web service, browser extension, search layer, or AI-powered directory system, without changing the underlying internet itself.
Right. Okay, but would an internet user be able to search through traditional browsers? That's the next question I ask.
Yes, but there are different levels of integration. Option 1 works today easiest.
I'm not standing for that. Continue.
//VHX. The browser loads your hash server and your system interprets the hash and returns results. No browser changes required. Option 2, browser extension. Users install a HashSite extension for Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox,
Eat
Microsoft
your
Edge.
vegetables,
Then they
Ted.
can type music, sports, see directly into the address bar. The extension intercepts the hash, sends it to your hash server. Option 3, custom protocol. You create a protocol such as hash/music or hash/c. Similar to HTTP mail tool, this requires browser or operating system support. Option 4, search engine integration. A user searches, open quote, hash music, close quote, dot or open quote, C. What makes music play through a TV? ESA, close quote. Your hash server will be
SA
indexed by search
is
engines
hash,
to return
SA,
specialized results.
hash short answer.
Option 5, the big vision. The most powerful approach is to make HashSite function like DNS. Today, you can see the code in our conversation history. HashSite, you can see the code in our conversation history. A browser wouldn't need to know where content lives. It would ask the hash server what music means. One challenge, browsers already treat specially. For example, you can see the code in our conversation history, use this hash as a page anchor. Because of that, you probably wouldn't be able to replace the existing meaning of across the web without browser vendors changing standards. A practical solution would be to create a new syntax, such as Nash music inside your platform, hash//music, hs/music, HashSite music, and let your hash server translate it. The strongest business opportunity. Don't try to replace the internet. Build HashSite as the intelligence layer above the internet. Users type. You can see the code in our conversation history. Dot.
All right. If I build it as the intelligence layer above the internet, do I still need to make my own server? Now, it said no, I don't. But my first step is for HashC to be the intelligence command layer of the internet. Okay, that's the first step. I don't need a hash server. Well, I could. So anyway, but it says, what did I say? If I build it as the intelligence layer above the internet, do I still need to make my own hash server? It said not necessarily. But I needed to make my own hash server anyway because of Hash World. And of the role Hash World is going to have on Web3 decentralized apps and platforms. So you have all these decentralized apps. On Web. That's how you get into Web3. You get a decentralized app, right? You have all these decentralized apps. Okay? And so you have these decentralized apps. And essentially, all of them is going to be connected to Hash World. Just like how when you on Google and you hit that box for your Gmail, it teleports you to your Gmail. That's essentially what Hash World is going to be to every decentralized apps, dApps. Okay? So that, therefore, you're going to have a profile. Hash World is going to have news, movies, TV, not TV, news, movies, what they call it. Hold on.
Man, whatever energy. How when you on Google?
News, music, sports, tech, world, politics, you know what I'm saying? Economy, hip hop, tennis, you know, all of that. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to still be able to do everything that you do on the web through your decentralized apps. The hash world is also, it's going to serve as a form of social media.
And HashSites searches websites, databases, AI models, videos, and social content, then returns a unified answer. In that model, HashSite becomes a universal directory and discovery platform that works through existing browsers while introducing a new way to navigate information. Yes, but there are different levels of integration. If you build your own hash server, what happens depends on how ambitious the system is. Scenario 1, private hash server, most realistic. You create a server that resolves hashes inside your ecosystem. Not necessarily. If HashSite is an intelligence layer above the internet, you can start without inventing a new internet infrastructure. Phase 1. No custom hash server required. You could build. You can see the code in our conversation history. When a user types, you can see the code in our conversation history. Your platform interprets the hash and retrieves information from existing sources. In this phase, the hash server is simply your application backend. Phase 2, hash registry. As adoption grows, you may want reserved hashes, verified hashes, company-owned hashes,
Right.
creator-owned hashes. Examples, Nike, OpenAI, BHX, Tesla. At that point, you begin building a hash registry service. Phase 3, true hash server. A real hash server becomes valuable when you want global hash ownership, hash resolution, cross-platform interoperability, developer APIs, browser integrations. Then the architecture becomes, you can see the code in our conversation history. The hash server acts like a meaning resolver, a potentially bigger opportunity. The most defensible asset may not be the server itself. It may be the hash language. For example, you can see the code in our conversation history where SSA equals short answer, L long answer, D equals demographics. Users learn a universal command syntax. That resembles how @ became universal for usernames, became universal for topics. If enough people use the language, the infrastructure can come later.
Right.
Suggested roadmap. 1. Build HashSite web app. 2. Create the C command language. 3. Build browser extensions. 4. Launch a hash registry. 5. Build hash server API. 6. Pursue browser and search engine integrations. In other words, you can validate whether people actually want to navigate the web using hashes before investing in a completely new internet resolution system. The language and user experience are usually the harder part to establish than the server technology.
Right. I get what they're saying, but because of Hash World, this is before I created Hash World. So, because of Hash World, they don't really understand why the server is so important. It's gonna have to be there anyway. So the first step of hashtag C, it doesn't necessarily need a server, right? Because it just needs to be set up on top of the internet as an AI intelligence layer. But that can be done first. But in order to effectively do hash sites, because my goal is to remove the www dot such.com, right? My goal is to be able to move, like right now, I'm finna go to a website. Okay, I'm finna, okay, no, that's wrong. Okay, my goal is I just went to Google and I typed in Taylor Swift, and that's where it brought me to, right? The official website of Taylor Swift, taylorswift.com. Okay, now I'm gonna type in Taylor Swift website. See, these are errors of not knowing how great we're gonna be in the future and where society was moving to, right? Communities. So it's not that there were errors. They're errors now, but they wasn't errors then, right? So now I went to Taylor Swift. I hit Taylor Swift website, and they got all this stuff on Taylor Swift, which is cool, right? So my goal is to be able to just hit in the URL hashtag Taylor Swift, and it sends me directly into the hash world. Okay, just putting that, because someone of her magnitude would automatically have a hash site, right? It's gonna bypass the traditional internet researching. It's gonna teleport it straight to the hash world. That's my goal. I know it's a lot. But the truth is that Web3, we need more people in Web3, because Web3 stands before a productive society. So majority of the people that's on Web3 are buyers and workers. Web2 not so much so. So the quicker we can start kicking things over and setting up that establishment over there, is the quicker we can get the world to adopt these ways and the currencies in this world. You know what I'm saying? So
If you build your own hash server, what happens depends on how ambitious the system is. Scenario 1, private hash server, most realistic. You create a server that resolves hashes inside your ecosystem. Example, you can see the code in our conversation history. A user's browser, app, or extension sends the hash to your server. You can see the code in our conversation history. In this model, you control the hash registry. You decide who owns music. You can monetize premium hashes. No changes to the internet are required.
right.
This is
And you know, like I was saying, it's gonna be very important when people, like right now, people can go to various places and just utilize it to create something that they don't really, you know, I'm one of them. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, don't physically have the means to actually, what's called it. So my goal would be to, in its own way, like, okay, let's say you're on Hash World and you want to start to you have your regular profile, right? But you want to start you a business page. You want to start you a business page. Okay. Well, you would actually need to, you know, have an LLC. You see what I'm saying? On this certain level. You feel what I'm saying? So that therefore it's already grooming the society towards these steps. You know what I'm saying? These basic steps of evolution. So, but anyway.
Similar to how search engines created their own indexing systems. Scenario 2. You create a DNS-like layer.
Well, they could just do a sole proprietor shit, but well, that's basically what it is when you ain't got. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No, what's the other one called? Yeah, I think that is a sole proprietor shit. I don't know. It can work, but it doesn't have to be. It don't have to be that way.
Today's internet, you can see the code in our conversation history. Hash internet, you can see the code in our conversation history. Now hashes become digital addresses. Potentially,
Right.
music, news, AI, travel become more valuable than domain names because they're shorter and topic-based. Scenario 3, hash economy. Once hashes have ownership, examples, cars, finance, movies, sports, these could become digital assets. A company might want control of insurance, loans,
Okay.
hotels. You would
Now, this is before I push forward. This is they're totally wrong. That's not. I'm not gonna do that. Insurance, loans, hotels. These are all gonna be in Hash World. You feel what I'm saying? They're all gonna be registered under Hash World, so that therefore said companies, insurance companies, can all go under that. You feel what I'm saying? Definitely not gonna do that. What
need
they were
rules
talking
for
about.
ownership, verification, transfers, disputes, trademark content.
Because if not, then you'll be a fool, you know, not to purchase loans and loan registry. You see what I'm saying? So I'm gonna cut that out. You know what I'm saying? So that's gonna all be registered under Hash World.
Scenario 4, hash internet layer. The largest vision is you can see the code in our conversation history. User
Now, sports would be under Hash World, but NFL, MLB, FIFA, those would be under those that, you know what I'm saying? But, you know what I mean?
stop thinking about websites. Instead of, you can see the code in our conversation history. They type. You can see the code in our conversation history. The hash server finds information and delivers an answer. In that world, search becomes hash-based. Websites become content providers. Hashes become destinations. Technical challenges. You would face major issues. 1. Browser support. Browsers already use tag for page fragments. You can't easily change that behavior globally. 2. Ownership disputes. Who gets music? Who gets news? Who gets AI?
Right, they don't.
3. Network effects. The system
I
only
do.
becomes valuable if lots of users and developers adopt it. 4. Indexing.
Hold on.
You would
I
need
do. It's the only way. You don't know that. I am the only one who knows that. or at least the will to act.
Infrastructure similar to search engines to keep information
I
current.
am the only
What could happen if it succeeds? The most valuable outlet.
one. Right, they're gonna register beneath the namespace.
Your idea starts to look less like a domain name system and more like a namespace system. The ownership dispute problem becomes much easier if nobody truly owns broad categories like news or music. Traditional domain model. One owner gets news.com, music.com, everyone else is excluded.
Right.
This creates scarcity and disputes. Hash world namespace model. Instead, HashSite owns and governs the root namespaces.
Right.
News, music, sports, business, technology, nobody can buy them. Instead, users register beneath them. Examples. You can see the code in our conversation history. This resembles how file systems work. You can see the code in our conversation history, or how social media uses handles. You can see the code in our conversation history. Why this is stronger. If someone owned music, they could become a gatekeeper. If HashSite governs music as public infrastructure, then artists register under it. Labels register under it.
Right.
Streaming services register under it.
Right.
Everyone benefits from the same root. Verification layers. You could have public hashes. You can see the code in our conversation history. Verified hashes. You can see the code in our conversation history. Official hashes. You can see the code in our conversation history. The verification system becomes more important than ownership. Hash the loophole concept. The interesting part of your vision is the loophole. Today, you can see the code in our conversation history. Hash world could become. You can see the code in our conversation history. Instead of searching for websites, users enter a hash. The hash then points to websites, videos, AI answers, social profiles, products, people. The hash becomes a persistent identity layer. Example. Suppose a musician registers. You can see the code in our conversation history.
Music.
That hash could aggregate
/
official website, streaming profiles, tour dates, merchandise, AI-generated biography.
Right.
Users learn that whenever they want information, they start with the hash. Governance challenge. The hardest part isn't technology. It's deciding whether HashSite is, 1, centralized. HashSite approves registrations, faster and simpler. 2, federated. Organizations manage portions of HashWorld. Example, music governed by music organizations. News governed by media organizations. 3, decentralized. Ownership recorded on a blockchain or distributed ledger. Harder to build, but more resistant to central control. A possible rule set to avoid disputes. Root hashes use music, sports, or permanent public infrastructure owned by HashSite. Organizations can register verified subhashes. Individuals can register personal hashes. Trademark holders receive priority verification. This is the point where it moves from concept into something you can actually ship. I'll frame this as a practical build plan for a V1 hash server that works on today's internet without needing browser changes.
Right.
Tester, what your hash server actually is. V1. Your hash server is basically, open quote, a query router plus semantic resolver that turns hash queries into structured results from the web, plus APIs AI, close quote. So instead of owning the internet, you're building a new search layer with a new input format, hashtags plus commands like sa, la. Core architecture, simple but real. Image number 1, hash parser, input layer. Takes user input like, you can see the code in our conversation history. Breaks it into hash equals music, intent equals query, entity equals Drake, mode, null_2, hash router, brain of the system. This decides where to send the request, what sources to use. Example routing, hash, route, news APIs, web search, music, Spotify, YouTube is web, sports, live stats APIs, C, AI model only. VHX, your internal ecosystem layer. 3, connector layer, data access. This pulls real data from web search API, Bing SERP API Brave, Wikipedia Knowledge Graphs, YouTube Spotify APIs, custom databases later. This is what makes it live internet aware. Number 4, AI reasoning layer. This is where your idea becomes powerful.
Right.
You run results through an LLM that summarizes, formats into SALA-day, removes noise, merges sources. Example output. You can see the code in our conversation history. Number 5, hash registry. This is your namespace system. You define hash root hashes you control. News, music, sports, say hash world. Subhashes, users/companies create. Music Drake, news, BBC, sports, NFL. This is where your ecosystem begins. Hash tech stack, simple V1 build. You can build this with backend, Node.js Express, or Python, Fast API. AI layer, OpenAI API, or local LLM later. Search layer, Brave Search API, or SERP API. Database, PostgreSQL hash registry, Redis, fast caching. Front end, NextDumple's web app, like you can see the code in our conversation history. Example flow, user types. You can see the code in our conversation history. System does 1. Parse hash music. 2. Route music pipeline. 3. Fetch Spotify data, YouTube web results. 4. AI summarizes. 5. Output. You can see the code in our conversation history. Minimal MVP, what you should build first. Don't overbuild. Start with V1 hash server must do only this. Accept hash queries. Route by hash type. Call search API. Send results to AI. Return SALA response. That's it. No blockchain, no decentralization, no browser changes yet. What makes this powerful? Real insight. You are not building a new internet. You are building open quote, a query language for the internet, close quote, like Google equals keywords, Chat GPT equal prompts, hash server, structured semantic hashes. Critical design decision. Don't skip this. You must decide early. Option A, search layer, hash server, smarter Google. Option B, identity layer, hash server, music, people, companies become structured objects.
Right.
Option C, both best long-term, search plus identities, AI merged.